Hi, this is James Barris. I hope you find this talk supports you in your practice. If you'd like to support my teaching, you can use the donate button underneath my picture on Dharma Seed to do that. Your support is greatly appreciated. So I've been away for the last month, teaching the month-long at Spirit Rock, as I do every February, which just ended a few days ago. And Eve has been here, Eve Decker, and Ramona Ortiz-Smith here. So I hope you appreciated their sharings, their offerings. And here those at Spirit Rock, and it was really great being on the land and sitting together and going internally and quiet, and for a while able to just withdraw from the world. And now we've come back to a world that, as soon as you think it can't get any more intense or crazy, there's a new level of dysregulation. So I just wrote today a letter to all the yogis who are sitting on the retreat. It'll come from the whole February team, but it just felt like coming out of a month-long retreat. You're very, very sensitive anyway, but with the news this last week, it's so sad and disturbing, this invasion of Ukraine. I'm calling the evening tonight a sad, heartbreaking heart, and want to just have us have a chance to hold in community whatever we might be going through. So now there's numerous violent conflicts happening all around the world that touch us all. Yemen, Syria, Myanmar, so many other places that are facing violence and famine. There's climate disruption also. This week, the climate report that says, not surprisingly, we're in some really difficult times ahead. But so there's a lot to absorb, but this invasion from one of the strongest military countries in the world, that can easily lead to an escalation of a wider war. It's so unsettling. It's so sad. One scratches one's head and says, like little kids playing in a sandbox, don't they see? So I wanted to give us a chance to just hold what we're all feeling together. Because as the Buddha said, when you are willing to open to suffering, you're not as afraid of it and repressing it and living in denial, because it's there anyway. And as it's said in mindful self-compassion, with feelings, you name them and you tame them, and you feel them and you can begin to heal them. But it's important to know just how much you can take in and how much becomes overwhelmed. So hopefully there's a container that we can all share together. And I'll talk a bit, but I also want to hear from everyone. I love this quote from Joanna Macy, who I'm going to show a clip of Joanna later on in the evening tonight, talking about how she suggests processing our pain. But this is what she says. We have to honor and own this pain for the world, recognizing it as a natural response to an unprecedented moment in history. People fear that if they let despair in, they'll be paralyzed because they're just one person. Paradoxically, however, by allowing ourselves to feel our pain for the world, we open ourselves up to the web of life, and we realize that we're not alone. The response that is appropriate and that this work elicits is to grow a sense of solidarity with others and to elaborate a whole new sense of what our resources are and what our power is. So it's kind of interesting that sharing our pain, we feel connection with others, and it can help us access something bigger than the sadness or the despair, which has to be honored and felt, and know that we're not alone. And it's been interesting to see, as often happens, that in this world, that action brings reaction, and that the invasion of Ukraine, it's been inspiring to see the Ukrainian people and the whole world, it seems, stand up in a real sense of solidarity. I was hearing that Zelensky, a month ago, his popularity rating in Ukraine was 21%. It is now 91% by last that I heard. Isn't that interesting? Even Democrats and Republicans here in the United States are in some kind of solidarity. And the EU, which hardly can agree on anything, all of a sudden has something of a united front. And I don't want to get too much into the politics of things, but just to see that suffering can bring people together. And when they come together, there's a whole other wave of capacity to process what's here. Because it's in community that we can grieve together, feel our sadness together, and hold everything together. Here it is. I love this quote by Francis Weller, who's a really wonderful psychologist whose major focus in the last decades has been on grieving well. And this is from his book, The Wild Edge of Sorrow, Rituals of Renewal and the Sacred Work of Grief. He writes, "Where there is sorrow," wrote Oscar Wilde, "there is holy ground." And then he says, "The sacred ground of grief and we can put in grief and sadness in there too, enables us to walk in this world with its attendant harsh realities of loss and death. We can discover how sorrow shakes us and breaks us open to depths of soul we could not imagine. Grief and sadness, can say, offers a wild alchemy that transmutes suffering into fertile ground. We are made real and tangible by the experience of sorrow, adding substance and weight to our world. We are stripped of excess and revealed as human in our times of grief. In a very real way, grief ripens us, pulls us up from the depths of our souls, what is most authentic in our beings. In truth, without some familiarity with sorrow, we do not mature as men and women. And it can include non-binary folks out there too. It is the broken heart, the heart that knows sorrow, that is also capable of genuine love. And then he says this about processing our grief and our sadness and our sorrow. He said, beginning in 1997, I began to offer grief rituals as a way for communities to attend the large and small losses that touch each of our lives. What has become clear is how difficult it is for us to attend to our grief in the absence of community. Carried privately, sorrow lingers in the soul, slowly pulling us below the surface of life and into the terrain of death. Grief has always been communal, always been shared, and consequently has traditionally been regarded as a sacred process. But too often in modern times, our grief becomes private, carrying an invisible mantle of shame, forcing our sorrow underground, hidden from the eyes that would offer healing. We must restore the conversation we need to have concerning the place of grief in our lives. Each of us must undertake an apprenticeship with loss. Joy is found when sorrow has been made sacred. We can coax our stories into the visible world where they can be held within the healing embrace of community. Oh, live transition. Yeah. I've just put on live transcription for those who wanted. I just had a request. And if it's showing up for you, you can hide the subtitles by going next to that CC on the bottom and just hit hide subtitle. So I'm so glad that we're here with everyone. The name of that book, someone asked, The Wild Edge of Sorrow, Rituals of Renewal and Sacred Work of Grief by Francis Weller, Weller. So I'm so glad that we're here together because then that's how we can help each other hold our sadness and our sorrow. And I hope that we can get in touch with the wisdom of the group to find how we're doing that these days. This is from Khalil Gibran, a quote that I love from the prophet. He says, "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked, and the self-same well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears. And how else can it be? The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. Now, we don't want to go looking for sorrow so we can have more joy and carve more into our character. There's plenty of sorrow and suffering enough to go around, but to not be afraid to touch it, and particularly to not do it alone. So I think before go on, I just would like to, in a way to open up to the community, invite us to reflect for a few moments, maybe invite you to go inside. And I'm sure you've been following some news. And again, I encourage you to know what your limits are and titrate if you're getting overwhelmed. But as you process these events and see a million people fleeing Ukraine and bombings and unprovoked aggression, again, remembering that these things are happening throughout the world, and this is just shining a spotlight on it. But as you've opened up to the news this week, just get in touch with how it's been landing for you. Allow for whatever is here to be here. There's no apologizing for feelings. And if you're feeling numb, then that's just your experience, and that's fine. But just to honestly connect what your internal experience is. And I hope you can allow it and hold it. Perhaps if you feel like you're getting dysregulated, or you're feeling the feelings well up, you might put a hand on your heart or do some self-soothing, comforting, some self-compassion. Some kind touch. Because the body responds even if you're the one whose hand you're feeling. You're here with 70 friends, and we're all feeling together. We're all making space for our humanness right now. Okay, now gently come back. And what I'd like to do to make this a bit of a communal experience is open up the chat box, and we can see to everyone, and just put in the chat box whatever feelings are coming up for you right now, and we can share our experience. I'll read some of them out loud. Right. Calm, sadness, whatever is here is fine. Just put it in. Be part of this community. Resistance. Hopelessness. Exhaustion. Anger. Grief. Tired. Heartbreak. Shame. Compassion for those fleeing. Denial. Whatever is here is welcome. Anger. Depression, tightness, holding in, unfocused, sorrow, fear, sad and yet distant, overwhelmed, disconnected, fear, hopefulness, anxiety, guilty, overwhelmed and numb, calm and contacted, fierce pride in people uniting, some despair creeping, distance and then grief, grateful to go into the heart, learning to be with it, the beauty and the sorrow, not fearing so much what's there. Inspiration for the Ukrainian and Russian peace movements, incredible courage, sad and confused, all of this. Everything is welcome. Disappointment with the news media. No right or wrong in what you're feeling or you're thinking. Any others, if you haven't gone yet, want to have your voice in there? My family is about 136 miles north of Kherson, which was just taken by the Russian army. I'm feeling don't know about how they're faring. Yeah. Overwhelm and shock. Yeah. Let's just take a nice deep breath so that this container can hold it all, and feel the refuge in Sangha, and know that you're not alone. We're not alone. We're all here together. We're so fortunate that we're not doing this alone. There's something really striking, and even it's been shown, studies have been shown that when people are going through pain, physical pain or emotional pain, when they hold somebody else's hand, and we're figuratively holding each other, that our threshold for pain is much greater, because there's a shared container, and our hearts can resonate with each other and create more space for it all. So, given that, let's see how I'm going to do. I think at this point, I'll show this video of Joanna Macy. And this is from her work that reconnects. Probably most of you are very familiar with Joanna, one of the most inspiring voices in engagement, and particularly engaged Dharma, engaged Buddha Dharma, Buddhist teacher, scholar, systems expert, and one of the truly special voices. And she leads this paradigm, the work that reconnects, and she teaches people how to hold their despair. Climate has been a big issue for her in the last few years, but she was very involved with, has been very involved with nuclear the nuclear threat and nuclear waste and all kinds of movements. And it's the same paradigm. And she calls this work the spiral for the work that reconnects. In her book, Active Hope, her more recent book, one of many brilliant books, she goes into this in great detail. But I wanted to show you this. It's a 7-minute clip of her talking about this spiral, 4 aspects of processing the sadness and the grief. So, hope this works out. I'm going to share the screen. Let's see. And okay, so now can you see about I'm about to have the tape. Is it showing there on the screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. All right. Here's Joanna talking about the spiral on this work that reconnects.
This next selection is a presentation of the plot line of the workshop, a kind of roadmap to where as a group we will be going. I find this very helpful, indeed important, to present early on in the workshop, say soon after the introductions, because it helps people to understand how the different parts of this work, from gratitude to honoring our pain for the world, to seeing with new eyes, how they follow on each other, parts that are quite different in character. And to see this ahead of time helps them to trust the work, to know that they're not going to be stuck in one kind of activity for the whole time, and to build confidence in where it's taking them. So here you see me present what I call the spiral, because this sequence of the work takes the form of a spiral, coming back round on itself, but never quite to the same point. Big Mama says, "You are my children, and we are being hurt. But we have to ground ourselves in the joy of life." That opens us up. That opens up our heart mind. So that's why the initial part of the sequence of the work that reconnects is gratitude. And I see it as a spiral. You know this. How many times we've looked at that way. We begin ever again with gratitude in the sequence of the work, in the plot line of the work. Because gratitude, as Big Mama knows, helps us to be fully present. And then, when we're really present and grounded, we're held and we know we're held in her, then we can open to what we're also carrying, which is so intolerable and unspeakable, what we're doing to our world and to other beings. And not only that, what we're doing is going to hurt the beings for millennia. So there's that to take in. There's something huge to take in, and you're fearless about that. Or maybe you're scared, like I am, but you're scared and fearless. How's that? You're ready. Like going off the diving board. You're ready. So, to the way to understand making room for that truth speaking, truth feeling, we've been calling it to honor our pain for the world. This is the most subversive thing you can do. This is what the industrial growth society and the corporate military empire wants us to not do. They want us to numbly follow orders and just see what next we need to buy to make ourselves feel good or look pretty or smell right or get someplace fast. But we're going to pause and we're going to honor our pain for the world, because this is a jewel. This is a jewel we carry inside us. This is your bodhisattva heart. This is essential to our waking up to our true nature. This is like a doorway we go through to see the immensity of who we really are. We are so much bigger than the industrial growth society can itself imagine. Trying to turn us into robots and consumers, when our true nature is this, and she's going to help us honor our pain for the world, because it is in doing that that we find most convincingly our interbeing with her. And then we get all the way through, oh my gosh, if I can suffer with my world, if I have that capacity, then I am huge. And then nothing's going to stop me. So we come to this part of the plot line, which is seeing with new eyes, and we open to the scientific and spiritual and perceptual revolution of our time, because something so terrific is happening at this dawning of the third millennium, just as we are about to pull down the curtain. So we don't know. Are we doing deathbed attendance on this planet, a conscious life on this planet, or midwifing a new birth? We're not going to know. But they're very similar. It needs the same quality of loving intention, the same kind of fearlessness of being there. And so then we come to applying it. How are we going to live our lives going forth? And as Doug and Fran and I were sort of conceiving this intensive, because each one is different. How do we want it to be this time? What are our goals, our glimpses? What this time? Fran reminded me that for 3 times straight, I had mispronounced this word, and he heard me say growing forth.
Not bad.
Why not? Maybe that's really more suitable. Yes, because each step we become different and more.
So those are the 4 steps in her spiral, and it starts with gratitude. It starts with having a wide heart that loves the world and is seeing all of its goodness and beauty, and all of the goodness in others, just like we're inspired by what's happening now in response to the invasion, just letting our heart be touched in that way. And that helps us feel the pain and honor our grief, honor our pain and sadness and sorrow, and to metabolize it so we're not overwhelmed, and little by little process it. And of course, we have to be careful how much we take in at any one time, but to nourish ourselves as we're opening up to the sorrow. And through that metabolizing, that processing, then we can see with new eyes, and we can have a vision other than just overwhelm and helplessness that enables us to go forth and find ways to express our care and our love that are meaningful and fulfilling and life affirming. And we do this together. But it's really important to know how to metabolize that sorrow and that suffering before we think that we need to act. Not that we can metabolize it all at once, because of course it keeps on coming in waves. So maybe I'll just stop here and open it up. We can have some time for conversations, and I want to ask you, maybe before we do open it up, to reflect. How are you, in your wisest moments, metabolizing your sadness, your sorrow? What do you do? What do you find that helps you little by little let it in a skillful way, so that you can process it and then open with courage and with commitment to express your caring wisely? Just think, what do you do? What helps you hold it all? And there are many, many ways, but now I invite you, again, we can have our communal wisdom. What helps you hold it? Reaching out to others, volunteer work. Yes. Or go ahead, put it in the chat box, and then we can open up a conversation. And be part of our communal wisdom. Make sure you're on mute until it's time. Help some Sangha, help someone in need right here. Great. Yeah, you don't have to go saving the world. Just be near someone that you can make a difference. Breathing with my emotions, letting the wave pass through me, journaling, staying connected to joy, gratitude, so I'm fueled and have energy to face it all. Trust in the process. Listening to wise, compassionate thoughts. Creative expression, staying, being in community with others. Yeah, time in nature. Yes, wonderful. Lyrics of Bob Dylan's Masters of War. Yeah, that says it all. Slowing down and accepting that sadness is part of life and better than not feeling anything. Long walks and crying. Yeah, letting it through. Doing some art, playing some music to be here and get relief. Turning jump rope for kids. Great. When I'm able to cry, I'm more able to feel the caring. Reading inspirational writings. Others. Reading and writing poetry. Giving support any way I can. Helping a stranger. Yes, as Angeles Arian says, action absorbs anxiety. And if you're feeling helpless and just imploding, then you're not expressing all that care. Any others haven't been named? Deepak Chopra thought, enlightenment is consciously choosing freedom from my conditioned mind. Talking with family here, also with uncle who left Europe during World War II, sharing with friends. Yeah. I encourage all of us to find ways for us to process our sadness, our sorrow, knowing your window of tolerance, knowing what you can take in. You might just, know your consumption of news. Spend time doing things you love. I love music, soothing music. Sometimes I put on Bob Dylan when I really want to get things out, but others, inspiring music, reading or listening to inspiring words, sitting quietly to help calm the system. So, all of these, we have both the capacity to open to the pain, and we also have the wisdom to know how to hold it. So in our time now, I can just open it up. If you have comment, reflection, question, invite you to, if you would, raise your digital hand in the reaction box on the bottom, or if you have an old version of Zoom, it's in the participants box. Just raise your hand if you from that box, and I'll see and can call on you. Let's hear from you. What would you like us to hear and know what's inside of you? Catherine, hi. Would you
Hi.
unmute yourself? Yeah, you're in. I can hear you now. Yeah.
I just did. Well, I've been thinking that one of the things that is particularly insidious about what's going on with Ukraine is that I get the sense that Putin has chosen a moment when everybody's exhausted, right? Because there's been so much going on politically in various countries, and then the pandemic and so on and so forth. And so it's one of the hard things about dealing with the news from Ukraine is a kind of a sense that one is overwhelmed, that somehow a lot of energy has already gone through processing grief in the last couple of years of different kinds. And so it becomes a little difficult to. It's as if for once I try to protect myself while also not doing so far as to not being involved or not caring. But it's a difficult balance, and of course, the people of Ukraine who are fleeing do not have that luxury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good point. We are all exhausted. However, there's this rising to the moment that's being collectively seen too. So, yeah, and it's good to know what your capacities are and protect yourself. And when you're up for it, process it a little at a time.
Yeah, I mentioned in the chat that today's New York Times had an article on how you can help, and they list 4 charities. So I'd be happy to put the link, or people can just go and look.
Yes, put it in the chat box. I saw that too. So there's different ways that you can help. Do you have that link?
Yes, I'm putting it in right now.
Great. There it is. Yeah. And you go to go to that. If you can copy it, I hope you can copy it. If not, you can just click on that and your your computer will open up to that box.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Yeah. Mhm. Others. What wants to be shared?
Hi, James. It's Denise.
Hey, hi, Denise.
Good to see you. I guess, there's no real answer to this, but I watch Putin and I watch, these aggressors, and it's just hard to understand how humans, what does this person have in their heart or their soul? What really inspires them? What brings them joy? What motivates them? Even trying to get under the obvious aggression, to try to see this person as a human being. And I think about him as a little boy or something, and it's just hard to obviously it's hard to understand, but that's kind of how I've been trying to look at it, and it's difficult.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate that. That's one of my main practices myself when somebody is hurtful and hurting others without caring. It is baffling and just kind of it really it's confusing what could be in somebody's heart, but you wouldn't want to be in their mind and in their heart. And so it's possible for me in my better moments to see this is just a twisted mind that out of their own causes and conditions has no empathy for other human beings. And I'm going to do everything I can, not that I can do much in this, to be on the cause of caring and compassion, but not poison my own heart with hate. But to just see as in Buddhism, the way I see it, the real villain is ignorance. Just not seeing clearly. And this is a twisted, sick mind. So thank you. Thank you for that. Let's see. Hold on. Let me get up here. Nathan, hi. Unmute yourself. Where are you?
Oh, thanks. Hi, James. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Wait, I'm going to spotlight you so people can see you. Yeah. There you go.
Just kind of building off of what you and Denise were both talking about is sometimes something that I've been thinking about lately is just how to create togetherness and oneness, even with those who cause the harm, those who perpetuate pain, because that separation of wanting to create an otherness or create a us versus them is in itself a harm as well. And so I think that's just something in my mind is what you were saying is, to the best of our ability, just maybe some compassion or understanding to this person or these people who are under a false guise, under a misunderstanding of what truly brings joy and love and happiness in this world.
Mm-hmm. Right. I'm right with you. Yeah. Now that is really a stretch for so many people, but that's I think what the Dharma has to offer, another perspective, so we're not swallowed up by our own hating reactions. As the Buddha said, hatred never ceases by hatred. Hatred only ceases by love. an ancient and eternal law. Yeah. Thank you so much, Nathan. Let's see. Anyone else? Joyce. Hi. So nice to see you. You can unmute yourself. Here it is.
I should know that by now. Yeah, good to see you too. This was really quick. I was at the Oakland Museum the other day and I was seeing an exhibit that was really helping me a lot with my grief. And I heard a conversation behind me with three people. I turned around, it was Joanna Macy, daughter, and another person. It's just such a healing moment. I just can't describe it. And oh my goodness. I want to just go back a little bit, and I don't know if you were present during this because I know you were on retreat, but it was before the invasion. And I'm trying to apply the Dhamma to this, and I was very disappointed that the president and the media were not showing any kind of restraint with their language and their threats, and it felt really anger provoking to me. And it was getting, the population really riled up and demonizing. And I kept on feeling, as I did when the US bombed Iraq, bombed Vietnam. And I go back to the Metta Sutta and phrases pop up, but the one that I'm just going to mention now is like, but none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another.
Yeah.
And I found us doing that. I found the media was doing that. I found Biden was doing that. It was very painful. And there wasn't an interest either in knowing what was going on in the mind of Russia. And I keep thinking, how would we be reacting if Russia had military in Canada or Mexico? And he's voiced this concern a lot of times, and I don't know if showing less restraint or thinking about those kinds of things would have changed anything, but it's such a dangerous thing to meet belligerents with belligerence.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, nuclear war, we're talking about the end of the planet. It was just terrifying to me. And I feel kind of alone with my thoughts right now. So if you have any understanding to offer, I'd really like to hear your comments.
Yeah. Well, all I can just share my own take on it. I really appreciate what you're saying. And yes, the dharmic way is seeing that bigger picture. And I can have compassion for Biden, who's in a hard place, who has to show strength in order for people to rally around, because if he seems too weak, then there's that backlash. And Putin, somebody like Putin says, "Oh, this guy's a wimp." So it's a tricky position to be in. And it's interesting because Biden, I think of as one of the more compassionate, genuinely compassionate leaders that we've had. That's part of that is who he is. And yet sometimes a warrior stance is needed to rally people. So I really feel your sadness. I deeply feel your sadness. And there's I can't say, oh, how could he do that? Because he needs to rally people too. The one thing that I've been tuning into, I'm sure most of you have as well, besides the Ukrainian people, are the Russian people, and just seeing them, all of them having such courage to be protesting in the middle of, grave danger to themselves. And this is not about the Russian people. This is about a leader who even some of his own inner circle is having doubts now. So it's complicated. And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Could I just say a couple of other things? Let's see now. It's so hard for me to listen and then also speak. I just would have really have liked some sense of diplomatic outreach, more balance in the media, and more of a sense of calming situation. Not knowing, of course, where this was going to lead, but it seemed like it should have been offered at least as an alternative. Myself, after the invasion, I'm in really a lot of grief for what's happening in the world. So I'm not an apologist at all for Putin. I just find this such a tangle of, trying to understand like why we went down that path. We didn't have to continue on that path. It would have been nice to have had that included. That's my grief there. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Okay, it's time to go. How about if we close with some dedication of merit, and let's hold the people in Ukraine, the people in Russia, as well as all those in the world who are in victims of conflict. Just holding them in your heart. May you find safety. May you be free of danger. May you feel the support of millions and millions, billions of human beings. Caring about you, wishing you well. And any goodness that comes from our sharing this evening together, may it be shared with all beings everywhere, and may there be peace on the planet. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for listening. To learn how you can support the teachers and Dharma Seed, please visit dharmaseed.org/donate.